All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA Show. So, what I'm going to call this podcast is Stop Feeling as If You Always Have to Choose Sides. And a lot of times when I come on this podcast, I talk about different things regarding my program, regarding what I teach, regarding what I do online. It could be YouTube, my podcast, my Mastering Self-Confidence program, consulting, all these different types of things. But sometimes I go, to another place. And, I bring this subject up because I think no matter who you are in your life, what you're going to go throughout your life, you're going to be caught so many times having to choose sides when it comes to people, I guess you could say. And, if your parents, for instance, ever got divorced, so my parents got divorced when I was younger, and you sometimes feel like as if you have to choose sides. I never went through that, thank God. And I think a lot of parents program their kids a lot of times to choose sides. Doesn't mean that you want them not to be with their father or their mother, whatever, but you want them to want to be with you more, maybe even, or with their family more, or kind of take precedent. And it also can be when you're younger, when you're going through a divorce, just kind of just feeling like, oh my God, who should who should I spend more time with? How should I react to this situation? Because you're kind of lost. Your parents split. In my case, it was okay. For some reason, it worked out really well for me. I have incredible parents that when they split still love me, and I got to spend a lot of time with them individually. I also love both sides of my family. And then my mother ended up getting remarried. My father remarried. I had two families, I guess you could say, that were amazing to me. I mean, I caught the lottery, I'm not going to say when it comes to divorces. My stepfather's family was amazing to me, I'm not kidding. And everything they did for me, my stepmother's family couldn't have treated me better. They taught me so many things about how to handle certain things with stepbrothers, stepsisters, half-brothers, half-sisters, all these things that I never knew about, because for the most part, most people weren't divorced back then. But even as I got older, I realized even with friends, a lot of times you get in a situation where there's a beef or an argument, and then your friends want you to choose sides, right? So you're kind of caught in this position where you were one good group or a bunch of us. Or it could be a tight-knit group. There's three of us. Then all of a sudden there's a beef. You're not in it, but then one of them wants you to take sides because the other doesn't want to be with the other one, or the other one did something to the other one, whatever. Now you're in that position, which I'm going to tell you right now, I never got caught up in that. I also went through this with a lot of family members. I did. A lot of my family members, especially, I don't know if you're Italian, and I think this goes for a lot of nationalities, when they get in a beef, they don't want to talk to their sibling, or they don't want to talk to their parents, or they can't anymore, whatever the situation is. Then they expect you to kind of revolve your life around that, or they want you to kind of choose sides. So or they want you to just, when you're with them, and you can't be with, if you're with the other one, you can't be with them. It becomes very complicated, especially if it's your immediate family. Especially if you want to invite people to dinners or parties or things, and them two aren't talking to each other. And then you have people taking sides, which gets even more confusing because you're like, okay, them two have a beef. Now you took that one side, so now you're on their side. Okay, you took that side. Now, where do I stand in all this? But I'm going to tell you one thing I did throughout my life. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you, I did that once to my father. I got in a beef with him. And I said, I'm not talking to this guy. And I didn't for a couple months or a few months. Then I ended up running into him. We used to collect money at bars and nightclubs. And I ran into him at a bar. He was collecting money because I wasn't working with him anymore. And then we were going in there for they had great wings, happy hour, whatever. My father was walking out. I was walking in. I said, hey, how you doing? We ran into each other. He shook my hand and we talked. And it kind of got squashed. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. Because it was destroying me. Carrying that burden around him, not talking to my father. It was hurting me, and I think it was hurting him too. And I've been in situations where somebody I love very much didn't talk to me. Not for weeks or months, but for years. They did it. They did that to me. But I was able to understand what they were going through for some weird reason. And of course, I'd get a little angry at times because this is somebody who's one of the most important people in my life. But I learned how to just accept it and get over it, and knew in time it would change, and it did. But sometimes that shit doesn't, it takes a lot longer than you think. But I think also people have to understand, back to choosing sides, a lot of times people may cast you out. Who the hell knows what they're going through? You may have never even did anything, or you didn't think you did something that was worth that. Take the high road. Just take the hit. A lot of times that doesn't mean that person does not love you. That just means whatever they're going through, they're going through. That's what I've learned. But going back to taking sides, the one thing I've been very fortunate at is not getting involved in that. Never, truthfully, that I know of, take sides. Now, if you've done something extreme, which I don't think I've been around anybody who's done something extremely wrong to somebody else. Of course, if I'm with my friends and then if one has a relationship with another's wife, I'm going to have a beef with that. So I didn't get, and I would take that, I wouldn't take sides, I would just have the beef with the person doing that with my friend. So if I have a beef, I'm going to take it one-on-one with somebody. I'm not going to let somebody else kind of make me, I guess you could say, have a problem with this person. It's going to be one-on-one. But I have not been in those situations. I have been in situations where I knew people were cheating on their husbands or wives, kind of both, and I knew about it. And I would address the person a lot of times, say, listen, I know what you're doing. I'm not going to beef you out, but that's a close friend of mine as well. So if I already know what's going on, you better have the balls to tell him or her what you're kind of doing. Because if I know this and I don't tell them, but I'm still not going to rat them out, but I would tell them, and eventually, in time, it obviously would get exposed. And again, that's none of my business to a certain degree, but I'm not going to look at two close friends or a couple that I love very much and I know the other one is hurting the other one. Like, if you cheat and I find out, it's really I would say that's none of my business. Do whatever you want. But if you're carrying on a full-blown relationship with somebody and you're intentionally hurting this person or just doing things behind their back, a lot of different things. It could be money-related and all these things. I'm going to confront them. If you're married, I think you got to kind of, and I'm not saying we don't all make mistakes, you just got to have respect for one another. But back to, kind of being able to not always have to take sides. I've gone through this with, my parents as well, because a lot of times when you're, even if they're fighting with whoever they're married with or other family members and things, I always tried to take the high road. And I know a lot of times people will be mad because you didn't choose a side, but that's on them. I've even had some of my closest friends getting beefs with some of my closest family members. And it got to the point where I knew they wanted maybe to choose sides. And I basically became more or less a mediator in that situation. Now, again, it wasn't like they intentionally were out to destroy one another, but I did not want to lose my close friendship. I also did not want to upset my close family members, too. But again, I think, too, is me living in Florida, I'm just going to throw this out there. I have a massive family in Chicago. I've always been able to kind of keep my distance and not get caught up with all the other things or all the other baggage or all the past things that are going on with everyone else. So on that end, I could say I've been fortunate, but I'm just telling you right now, if you get in situations where people also want to make you choose sides, try not to do this. And I'm going to tell you one of the reasons, the main reason why I'm going to wrap up there, is because a lot of times they get in a beef, they're fighting, then you choose sides, then them two get back together and they're friends. The other guy knows you took the other side of the friend. I think a lot of times that ruins your relationship with the other person. Even though, whatever the case may be, and I think this happens a lot, too, with people getting divorced. I know when I got a divorce, I know people took sides, and I understood why. And, some took my side, some took hers, and I say, I want everyone that I was friends with to still be as close with my ex-wife as possible. I am the last person that would ever want to have anybody take sides. But it wasn't really necessarily about even our friends taking sides. It was kind of on the other end, a lot of couples then saying, oh, wait, Rich is single now. The wives, for instance, would be like, oh, I don't necessarily want my husband now hanging out with him. I loved us as, all of us for years being in a group, being married. But now, so she kind of, not that the husband-wife took sides against me, but they just weren't a part of my life anymore. So it was almost like they chose to decide, if I'm single, we're not as close. If we're married, we're close. And you may go through that a lot of times. And you got to understand, that's people's freedom to do whatever they want to do. And, and as time goes on, again, I've had friends that are married. And I got a divorce, and then their wives, like I said, went through that. But then they ended up divorced. And I always kind of stepped in and tried to say, listen, I know where you're at. I know what you're going through. Because a lot of times when going through a divorce, a lot of people, again, are taking sides. And sometimes I think men or women sometimes feel shut out, especially if one of the two was the one who wanted to get a divorce, because a lot of times they'll kind of take the side of the victim a lot of times, or whoever that may be in that situation, which a lot of times I'm calling bullshit. I treat, again, if you get a divorce, I will treat the couple the same as if they were married. That's just my thing. That's just the way I feel about it. I don't think anybody deserves to be someone taking sides. Even I have nothing to do with their relationship. If you especially have kids, I'm going to treat you the way you deserve to be treated, because you're the mother of those children that most likely I love very much, and you're the father of those children. And it's just, taking sides is just a rough game. And if you are in this position, or you put people in this position, I think you should take a hard look at your life, because I do think there are so many people out there, especially it could be at work, in their family life, whatever, that are always kind of making people take sides, because there's always a lot of drama in their life. And if you are doing that to people, I just think you better pay close attention, because I think in the long run that I've seen people who do that, most people get sick of your shit and end up just entirely dipping on you because they don't want to be a part of it. So you kind of canceling out more and more people, you eventually get canceled out yourself. So I'm going to wrap it up there. You got any questions or comments, you could hit me up. I try to help divorced men, actually, in my program. It's called Mastering Self-Confidence, and it's really to help men through a hard breakup or divorce. But, there's a lot more in there besides that. It's kind of subjects like this about how to kind of prevent a lot of problems, I think, when it comes to relationships. Because I think, again, no matter who you're most likely with, you're going to have breakups, not even divorces. And then it comes like, again, choosing sides. You may have friends that are friends, and it gets very confusing, but really take the high road. Treat people with the respect they deserve, regardless, even if you're in a relationship with them or not. And that includes their family members and their friends and their colleagues. Just because you break up with someone does not mean you can't be friends with those people. That's ridiculous. Even though a lot of times who you break up with will be like, no, those are my friends. Stay away from your own. I'm not telling you to be a pain in the ass and start hanging out with all their friends. What I'm saying is, you could still be friends with them. You could still give them the respect they desire. And a lot of people will be shocked that you still reach out and you're still, being cool during that situation. So, all right. Take care, and I wish you nothing but the best.